Good afternoon. Here it is, Mother's Day weekend, and if I'm quiet, you can hear the rain falling on this shed that I'm standing underneath. So I think we're going to do a stand in the shed and talk. Also, I may wait a little bit afterwards so I can get back to my place drier than I might otherwise be. I think it's appropriate that one of the things comes to mind that we could talk about is the question of, are cows sacred? Do we owe them obeisance to the milk that they produce? Well, Marielle Williamson, who's a student, 17, out in Los Angeles, she wants to have plant-based milk. And so she's been pushing for it in the school cafeteria. And she's been circulating material. And we're going to hear about this woman again someday because she's highly principled, very forceful, and she's managed to get the support of groups to sue her school district to permit her to talk about and to have plant-based milk. Now, you may say, what is this all about? What it's all about is that the government has been pushing on our children milk. Great old Bossy's milk, you know. And increasingly, this current generation is less interested in milk and more interested in plant-based milk. And they also think that you don't eat your friends. You don't eat them, and you don't encourage people to abuse them by how they get milk out of them. And so there's that side of it. But also, there's a real preference for other kinds of plant-based milk. And the USDA doesn't want to hear anything about this. And here's the other thing. When students have said, okay, not even plant-based milk, we want water, or we want soda, or we want juices and things like that, they don't want to put those into the school because they don't want the children to stop drinking the milk. So they give them the milk. Now, can you imagine? I mean, dehydration. I don't know how much it takes out of a person sitting in a trigonometry class, but the things our government gets into, to the disadvantage of freedom and our people and their legitimate preferences, and to discourage children from considering, bear with me, a healthier drink as you get old. And she said, I can't understand why we would want to be taking milk from another species for ourselves. So that's number one. There's another situation, much more grievous, and it may make you think of James Bronson. Bronson had a movie when I was younger, and it was, what did he call it? Death Wish. That there were people that were so upsetting and so evil and so terrible, he would go out and he would find these people and he would shoot and kill them. And I was in movie theaters in New York on 86th Street. There was a movie theater. And I heard the people in the audience screaming for the killings to go forward. Now, what does that have to do with today? There's a guy named Dan Penny who is about 24, and he's a former Marine. And he was on the subway, as I understand it, and there was a homeless man who has a mental problem, who has been arrested in part because he's been disorderly. He was unarmed. And Dan put him in a headlock, and he kept him so many minutes that the man died. So he basically killed a homeless man who was unarmed. He's now being prosecuted. And some people are trying to justify what a nuisance he was as, I guess, equivalent to capital punishment. Now I don't know how good the police are policing these stations and which station it was and so forth. And I can't go on my historical knowledge because it's been too many years to know what it's like. When I go up now, I still think going by the subway is the fastest way, faster than walking now, because you have to walk through so many people. And certainly, I did use a motorcycle for a while, but I'm not sure that would be any quicker. So things happen in the subway, and I don't think you can let this thing go. And Death Wish was a special time, I thought a sad time in American history, when we could think that the system was so weak that we had to have arms ourselves and take the justice into our own. On the larger front of crime, we have, of course, Trump. and everybody is plumbing the depths of what he said at his CNN re-election rally. CNN will never live it down, and I wonder if they'll survive, and I wonder if they should, if they're going to distort the news by pretending this was an objective presentation when no other candidate was allowed, and it's just terrible. But all of that said and done, Trump decided to talk about the documents, and he tries to have it both ways. He doesn't have the documents, doesn't know about them, but he can have them, and he does have them. And because he has them, and he was the president, I almost said king, he can't be faulted for it. And it's the old Nixon notion, if the president does it, it must be the law. The embodiment of like the divine right. Some people are confusing themselves with Charles III, I think. So that is not our system. Even our Constitution says we're not supposed to defer and honor royalty. We're not supposed to accept the emoluments of that, even as a citizen. And I agree with that. But, and I don't think I'm a strange duck that way, but I know too much history to believe that I should be with Great Britain over the French, for example. And in this case, I think we have to make Trump pay his due. And of course, people are saying, well, that's a really good thing for Black Jack Smith, our special prosecutor. And yeah, it is. But, call me when he does something, because right now he's not, okay? Finally, this has been a personal beef of mine, and it is that Feinstein is back. And, I was on the Hill, and one of my appointments, which has confused friends of mine, given what my views are, was that Strom Thurmond once appointed me to be a special counsel of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And it was a bipartisan investigation. And I did it with both Democratic senator and Republican senator, not Strom Thurmond himself. But the reason I bring him up is he was in office until he was 99. And he racked up a whole bunch of successful records by doing that. I mean, longest living, longest in position, and so forth. He didn't have a lot of bills himself, which is interesting. But he was vigorous until he wasn't. And he served in his final years from a nearby hospital. He had to be brought to the floor and so forth. And I'm sure part of it had to do with seniority brings with it lots of benefits. And so one of the reasons people hang on is those benefits of seniority can be conveyed to the voters. And people may or may not appreciate that, but it's absolutely true. It continues to be true despite all the reforms. So that's a long way around saying Feinstein is back, and she didn't stay out as long as Thurmond or some other men have in history. Would I change that? Well, I would change it prospectively, meaning if you're going to change the rules, change them now and make them apply. And maybe there are certain medical situations that should dominate whether a person continues or not, and what they must be or can be able to do, or how long they have to be out of office to repair themselves that they're no longer serving. But we don't do any of those things. We don't ask the logic. In fact, I think the people who are pushing the hardest for Feinstein to step down and leave her seat entirely, not just announce she was retiring at the end of the current term, was they hoped to get somebody in her seat between now and the election for her seat to give that person a leg up. And the solution to avoid that kind of pressure is to never appoint to an unserved term a substitute who wants to continue in that position when the election is held for a full term or a special term. And that would be the answer in California. That would be the answer anywhere. That is a fair rule. If we really believe in democracy, then you don't get to shortcut it by appointing someone and giving them an edge in the election that will follow. And maybe it's a year or 2 years. Maybe it's 6 years, depending on when you do it. So did you notice the rain is not coming down as heavily? This is good, see? So we got to talk about these issues. I got to lean up against a wood barn here. And running shed, actually. And we don't have any animals in this paddock right now. Although my Jack Russell pup is with me. Let's see if you see him somewhere. There he is. He ran away. Unlike me, he's camera shy. So that's what I have to say. And as I'm out here in the the beautiful outdoors, I will give you a spin around the field. And so I look forward to talking to you tomorrow, maybe on Mother's Day. It won't be raining. All the best. Bye-bye.